All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Yes, it's Chicago Junction, being the radio program that is all about everything that is railroad. Now here's our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network, as well as the chief electrical engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Monday, June the 15th, the year of our Lord, 2015. Today the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
And here's our host with the most, Mr. Jack Red Ryan.
Thank you, Brian Valou. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening. Hope you have half as much fun as we do on our monthly get-together. It's just about summertime. It's not official yet, but it sure feels like summer. What do you have, 90-something degrees officially today, or 92, or what was it?
The car said 96 on the drive up here.
Well, I'll believe your car any day over the weatherman. Believe me. Especially since you picked me up. Anyhow, once again, this is our monthly get-together, and we're a little bit late today. Dave Zarushka is a little under the weather with some allergies. Get well, Dave. Tom McKenna is out of town. And Doug, what happened to Doug? Anyone know? Maybe he'll show up yet.
He might show up.
I know he's had problem with scheduling. He teaches computers, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe they stuck him with detention people.
It teaches at Wright College, and I guess computers are probably easier to teach than people. So that's supposed to be a little bit of humor, so keep my daytime job, I know. Well, good evening. We have we already heard from Brian Valou, our announcer and panel member extraordinaire, correct?
That is correct.
And what is your background in that?
Well, retired Navy and railroader, engineer and conductor. I was I volunteered at doing the Garden Railway at Chicago Botanic Gardens. I'm a large-scale modeler, Lionel modeler, and live steam modeler.
Okay. I know I ask you this every week, but maybe people don't remember, so. I don't even remember, so. Who are you?
That's it. That's the way it is.
And sitting kitty corner, my good buddy and driver, my chauffeur, Kevin Barry.
Good evening. Retired member of the Chicago Police Department and longtime survivor of the Lionel bug.
You call it
58 years.
The sickness, you call it?
The sickness.
The sickness. You got it, right?
Yeah, well, my wife, as long as my wife tolerates my collecting Lionel trains, I don't have to get any other vices.
Okay, vices, correct. No vices. No vice presidents either.
No.
And we have as a guest Fred Haberkamp.
That's correct.
And good evening, Fred. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming down to the John DeVita Broadcast Center here.
Okay.
And can you tell us a little about your background in railroad or interest? Or?
Well, basically, I'm still running two companies. I own them: Columbia Metal Spinning, Craft Metal Spinning. I also am the chairman of the board at New Horizon Center, a school for severely handicapped children. Those are all part of my full-time jobs. I also have HO, Lionel, and G-scale trains I've been modeling with. I have about 2,000 feet of track outside my house for G-scale. For 15 years, I've been a volunteer with Dave Clokey, and we helped him build the Leviathan. I am his fireman when we go out now. So for the last 3 years, I've made just about every trip but about one. I helped them build for the last 4 years the Lincoln funeral car. I'm in the process of building my own Forney. It's a Baldwin 1908 Forney that I picked up 2/3 of the pieces from the frame down. I'm in the process of building that right now.
You need a hobby. Yeah, well, thanks for coming down here. We can share what we can. Where do we start? Anybody got anything? What about this? Anybody know anything about this 606 park in the area?
Yes, the 606 Park was just officially opened on the 6th of June. It follows an abandoned section of raised railroad right-of-way from Ashland Avenue running west to Ridgeland Avenue. There are 6 parks along the trail. It's from the photographs I've seen, it's quite a nice park. It'll provide plenty of space for walking and bicycling. It is dog friendly. There's 7 water fountains, but they forgot to plan bathrooms. But they say you can come down on the ramps and use any of the parks. There's a Ridgeway Trailhead Park at the west end, a Kimball Park, a forgive me if I mispronounce this, Julia de Burgos Park, Park 567, Churchill Park, and Walsh Park at the Ashland Avenue terminus, which is very close to the Clybourne Metro Station. And, it should be quite nice. It's been getting a lot of write-up in the Red Eye.
And it's been on a couple of the newscasts. WGN had a kind of an extensive one on the weekend. I remember seeing that. And, of course, the bigwigs were there for the dedication. And, yeah, it looks impressive. Something that's going to draw people there to check out anyway, at least a little curiosity to start with.
And there is an impetus now to take the Weber Spur Trail, which runs from Sunnyside Avenue north to Devon Avenue along the old Union Pacific right-of-way, and turn that 2.7 miles of unused ground-level right-of-way into a park and walking path. I know they did it with a section of Penn Central track out on the far southwest side where it enters the city at 127th Street, and I know it runs at least to 107th Street, and that's the Major Taylor Trail. I'm not sure who Major Taylor was, but I know it's a nice 8-foot wide asphalt path for bicycling and walking.
Brian, anything on that? Or?
No, I'm actually really I'd only just heard about it from Kevin, all the information.
Was there something like this in New York done
Yeah,
before?
now there they have the Highline Park. It's the elevated railway that goes along 12th Avenue in Manhattan on the south side.
Similar setup or?
Similar set, yeah.
How long is that, or how distance you have in there?
It's about 2.5 miles.
So,
It goes up to 36th Avenue, which is where the New York Central Freight Yard was. It's now a convention center.
Fred, you got anything on that, or do you?
No,
You're
nothing.
you're busy enough as it is, I think. What else you got, guys? What are we going to talk about here? What do you got? Anything happening? Or?
Oh yeah, happening.
Happening? This is
Well,
the happening place, right?
Yeah, this weekend starts off. We got the Franklin Park Railroad Days, and starts Thursday, June 11th, goes through Sunday, June 14th. Saturday, they'll be getting into it. That's when a lot more exhibits show up. All the major railroads in the area send locomotives over for display.
We had his on run last year. Remember, that's a whole year ago now, huh?
Right.
Wow.
And
Where's my wife going?
We've got the Midwest Rails will be setting up their modular G-gauge layout right near where their tower is and the caboose. They set it up in between there. Right behind them is the tent that has the stage for the shows. And a lot of the other model groups set up tables and such. I know the Chicago chapter NRHS will be there with their booth. And like I said, it runs through Sunday. And they, music starts on Thursday night, and they got rides for kids and everything else.
Mm-hmm. That are you involved in that?
No, because I would be, but some other organization has wrangled me for the weekend. On Saturday, I'll be down in New Lenox, where the Chicagoland Lionel Club is, with Mr. Barry is quite familiar.
I've heard of that. I've heard of that before. Is that you?
Well, what it is, we're going to have approximately, they seem to average about 140 scouts on the weekend, and we'll be getting them qualified for their railroading merit badge. And I do 3 of the topics working with Operation Lifesaver, and telling them about it and making them aware.
That's one of the merit badges I had, I think, railroading.
Mm-hmm.
And only made star, didn't even make life. What if I can go back?
The railroading merit badge is one of the 3 merit badges in the transportation group for the Boy Scouts: aviation, trucking, and railroading. And
and trucking's one that came after I left.
I don't remember it, but
and I have seen Brian in action, and the boys are actually quite enthralled with not only the presentation but the real life stories that Brian shares with them.
Mm-hmm. Usually I work with a couple of the presenters from the Canadian National Railroad.
Mm-hmm. Now, Kevin, you are involved with the Scouts. Are you involved with this coming up?
Yes, I'm a merit badge counselor. This is one of the 4 merit badges that I'm a registered counselor for, and I'm the managing director of the commissary department. So it's my responsibility to see that all the scouts and all the staff members and all the adult leaders are properly fed.
Attaboy.
That's the main function.
That's the cook, isn't it?
That's it. On Sunday, June 19th, at the DuPage County Fairgrounds, there'll be the Great Midwest Train Show, which they usually have once a month. Yeah, the 14th.
You said 19th, didn't you? Yeah, maybe it's my hearing. Oh, well, that's okay.
Could be my pronunciation.
I heard Brian say the 14th.
Okay, yeah.
Never argue with a chief petty officer.
Well, never argue with the guy, who's reading.
Oh, trust me, don't say that. No, Kev, you don't say that right now.
I just wanted to show you I was paying attention.
I've got no comment. I know you too much.
I take the 5th.
And then I'd
Make
take
it 2.
3. But the DuPage County Fairgrounds is like a swap meet for trains. They have 5 buildings, just loaded with stuff. They usually get several layouts are up. Even the local Lego group sets up on the main stage. But that's, let's see, it's $7 for tickets. Kids under 12 are free. Mm-hmm. And if you want to bring your spouse with you so you can keep it, say it's for your Father's Day present, you can get her coupon for free.
Is that the monthly get-together?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Except for August,
right,
when the fair's going on. And let's see, at the end of the month, we got the Galesburg Railroad Days. And it'll actually starts on the 26th and goes through the 28th, Friday through Sunday. And they usually it's usually jam-packed. In fact, one of the displays down there is going to be the Leviathan and the Lincoln funeral car.
Yeah.
Will be on display on one of the tracks at the station, along with locomotives from the BN and Amtrak.
Galesburg, that's what.
And I believe the Leviathan will be lit off. Correct?
Yep. Yes, we will be running the Leviathan. We're on a siding. The railroad down there will not allow us into their yards. but we have about 600 feet of track we can roll around and play with. The funeral car will be on snap track underground next to the museum. And we're going to have, it takes us about 8 to 9 hours to set everything up, both on the engine and the funeral car, so we're going to have fun down there.
And Galesburg was it southwest of Chicago?
Yeah, that's about 4 miles southwest of here. 4 hours.
Yeah,
You actually can take the Amtrak
Right.
from Union Station.
Yep.
There's 2 morning trains and 2 afternoon trains. The morning train is actually part of the outbound Zephyr, and the early afternoon train coming back into Chicago is the return on the Zephyr. But the wife and I had the opportunity to do it, I think, 2 years ago, and it's a very nice trip out. And there was a restaurant called the Packing House, probably about 100 yards from the station. It's an old Swift and Company butchering plant that's been reworked into a very nice restaurant. And one of the things that I thought was neat about it is they have an old REA baggage cart, and they've got the whole thing set up as a giant salad bar.
But it's not a vegetarian place then, right?
Oh no, you can get a very nice piece of cooked cow.
Yeah.
But my wife likes her salad, so she was very happy, and it's air conditioned, and after walking around, and it tends to be a little warm. It's nice to find a place to sit down that's air conditioned. But they had a very large train show going on inside the high school, and I don't know if they're going to do it again. But the year we went down there, they had a bus tour that went through the yard, the rail yard, and they showed all the different places in the yard. And they stopped, and they have an operating hump track down there, and the gentleman from the yard actually explained how the whole operation worked. It was very informative.
Oh, they still have that. That's one of the events that they're listing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to do that, get the tickets early because they tend to go quickly.
Now, you said the restaurant was a former Swift and Company?
Yeah.
I know the Packers were all located on here at one time, because when I used to work near South, the old Comiskey Mansion and the Armour Mansion were like around 30-something Michigan. They're like brownstones converted, And they said, old man Armour, every morning he would walk from his home on Michigan over to the office in the stock yards. And do you know why he would walk? Because if he ran, people would think he was Swift. Come on. Okay. I had a chance to use it. I thought I'd try it.
I wish you hadn't.
If he ran, people would think he was Swift,
Okay.
That's so bad, it's funny, I know.
Yeah.
Don't laugh, Brian.
You're laughing at me, not with me. I get it. Okay, what do you got?
All right. Well, for some reason I forgot to say it, but there is a website to go to so people can check it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's GalesburgRailroadDays.org. And then same with the Midwest, the Great Midwest Train Show, GreatMidwestTrainShow.com.
There's not many hotel rooms available anymore.
No?
No, they've been sold out for a while. You really got to hunt to find something.
So it's that busy?
Yep.
Oh, it must be good. It must be really good. It's worthwhile.
Yep.
Huh? Something to think about for the grandchildren in a few years.
I don't know, but if you would have saw it on the internet, but last year when the Leviathan was out there, we pulled one of their brand new diesels back to the yard, a 208-ton pull. We were only rated for 150 tons on our couplers. But we called into the FRA for a special test, and they gave us approval, so we pulled the engine back to the yard for them.
So you're better than your certification? Is that
Definitely,
Yeah.
our certification is going to be changed in the next round.
They never figured out the full power of steam.
Mm-hmm. We pull 3 heavyweights with no problem.
We spoke to somebody from the Galesburg show last year. You remember? We talked to somebody in the.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So that's probably was the same time or. Well, I can't remember. We had mayor of Franklin Park. I can't think of the man's name now. He was very good guest.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, the person from Galesburg was a call-in guest.
Yeah, no, I say he wasn't here. I mean, yeah, it was on the telephone. He didn't come in here just for that.
But he's a very informative gentleman.
Yeah.
If you have never done it before, it is good to do, because as you're going out on the Amtrak, you pass another railway museum, and you get to see some of the some railroad equipment that's on display. I don't remember which one it is. It's out the other side of Wheaton, but there was some other stuff that we got to go past, and it was a nice trip, and the Amtrak was very, very pleasant, and coming back, because of vagaries and people not wanting to sit next to other people, they had to open up the business class compartment, and some of us wound up down there, and those are really nice seats.
Now, was that up and back in one day, or did you stay over?
No, it was down and back the same day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think to get a motel room, although I don't know if my wife would have put up with me oohing and eyeing over train cars for 2 days. She's tolerant, but there's a limit.
I say they do put up with a lot, don't they?
Yes,
Shh.
sir.
Don't tell her I said that. Shh. Yes, sir.
And last but not least, the Heston Steam Museum over in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
They opened Memorial Day weekend. They had a big 3-day celebration. And by the time this goes out, they'll be well into their runs. They're open now every weekend. And usually on the weekends, they are doing things. Here we go. The next big weekend will be June 20th and 21st, Father's Day weekend. Dads get to ride for $1, but you got to have a child with you. And you got to claim if it's real.
Well, they didn't say whose child, though.
That's true. They never do ask either. And then on the 27th and 28th is Civil War days. They do Civil War reenactment down there with both Confederate and Union. And a lot of train robberies going on then. And then there's 4th of July weekend on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Mm-hmm. That'll be like the holiday weekends. They light off a lot more. The steam-powered sawmill will be lit off along with the steam crane. More often than not, they light off at least one of the steam tractors. You got at least 2 steam locomotives running on the 2-foot and 3-foot narrow gauge, which is a 2.5-mile run. You got over 1.75 miles 14-inch gauge. If you want to see where the locomotives went from Kittyland, that's where you might want to go.
It's over there.
And yeah, the 2 streamliners.
Mm-hmm.
And the with the sawmill, they usually try to save the holiday weekends for the Shea locomotive that they have. 3-truck Shea, wood burner. Last narrow gauge Shea that was built in 1929. After that, American Family Day on August 2nd. Labor Day weekend, that's 4. You end up with the parade of tractors. They got a lot of antique tractors. They have threshing machines, which are all demonstrated. At least 2 of the steam tractors are running. They're trying to get 3 of them running. And I think this is the year of the steam-powered popcorn maker.
That's about time.
Yes.
Now, weren't you associated with them? Or are you?
Yes, I am. I'm still associated with them.
Yeah.
Or still a member.
Mm-hmm.
In September now, they started on the 26th and 27th, the 4th weekend. They have Chicago Days. So only trains from around Chicago are running. So we have the Kittyland locomotives running, and we also have the steam locomotives from the Brookfield Zoo running. The 2-foot gauge. They were discovered in a warehouse in 2000, and they all ended up going out to Heston. And then after that, the trains run on Sundays up until the end of October. The last 2 weekends is the Ghost Train.
Halloween?
Halloween, yeah.
Okay.
They do it for actually 3 weekends. They're even going to do it 31st and November 1st. And then the next time the train runs would be in December. The first 2 weekends, the Candy Cane Express, and Santa arrives in his magic caboose.
And then do they take a little?
Yeah, they take a run around.
No, what I mean is then they're inactive until
And then they're inactive just while working
till Memorial Day.
until Memorial Day weekend.
Oh. Okay, I knew for sure there was something around Christmas time. So most of them have something like that, right?
Yeah, but out in that area, there's a couple of nice museums you can go to. One would be in North Judson. They have a steam museum there on ex-Erie trackage. And they've got an Alco switcher that they use for pulling, and sometimes the 765 ends up there. And in fact, the Norfolk Southern will be running in July. The 765 will be running starting in Fort Wayne to Lafayette, doing two round trips, and then running around the area eastern, going across to Ohio. And they're going to end up in Steamtown.
Yep.
Up in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
You were from around there, aren't you?
Yes.
Where are you from?
Reading.
Reading. Take a ride in the Reading Railroad, right?
That is correct.
Monopoly, yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about? Fred, you were want to give us some. You worked on the restoration of the Lincoln train.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
here
Actually,
or there? Where was this?
The car is actually built from scratch. The original car burnt down, I believe, was about 1911. It was supposed to have been the equivalent of USA, the Air Force One for the president. He never officially rode in it until his death. He was supposed to be that week going to view it. He wasn't wild about the idea of having a fancy car to ride in the middle of the Civil War, but his officers were pushing him to segregate him from possible whatever Confederates and stuff like that. So, but he got assassinated, so that was officially the first trip he ever rode in there with him and his son when he brought it back, his body back to Springfield. There are, and I can't remember the names, but there are several modelists who built exquisite models, 1 foot, 2 foot gauge models of the car, and done literally years and years of research and basically recreated prints and sketches from history and pictures, and duplicated these models. And from that, Dave Clokey, who built it, was able to generate the prints, engineer out the structural requirements, for FRA approval, and we actually started building it about 3.5 years ago. And again, it's not 98% volunteer work out there on it, and of course donations for materials and supplies and stuff. So,
what was the location where this is being done?
This is all being done in Elgin, or South Elgin, approximately.
Okay.
And that's where he built the Leviathan, which was a 440 replica of an 1865 steam engine. That was, the plans for that were the duplicates for the two engines that are out at Promontory Ridge, Utah, the Golden Spike. He actually,
Got to hold that. We're time for a hard break here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, June the 15th, the year 2015. And now back to Chicago Junction and our panel.
Are you having fun, Fred?
Oh, yeah.
Hope so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were saying now.
The Leviathan, when Dave started to do this about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, he found out that for the anniversary, 100-year anniversary, the Park District recreated both those engines. There was no plans. Everything was gone. They contracted O'Connor Engineering to re-engineer the parts through existing similar engines in different museums and pictures of the two engines, which there's a lot of history of pictures that were taken. They reverse engineered, laid out the prints, and built both engines complete. All the molds and everything for this with the prints they generated were out in Utah in storage. So Dave was able to, through a donation, recondition all the molds and cast all the major components necessary. And we actually finished building it and went live with it in 2009 for a steam show at Owasso, Michigan. That was our first outing. And at the outing, a group of people from just south of York, Pennsylvania, New Freedom, were interested in setting up a tourist railroad down there because that's part of the original railroad from that era going to Gettysburg, and which tracks have been abandoned. So they reclaimed the track rights from there, and Dave actually built the 119 for them. We finished that in 3 years.
That's also in Elgin? Elgin?
All in Elgin.
All in Elgin.
All in Elgin.
Okay.
And so we delivered that since we're the only people really set up to haul engines around. He had 2 custom semis built to haul the engine and the tender, so we hauled it out there and set it up and ran and showed them, turned it over to them. And
So you didn't run on track out there?
We're running on track, live track. And actually, 2 years ago, we took the Leviathan out there in September, I believe it was, and we actually ran for about a week to 10 days, double heading with them. We were playing out there with different reenactments. So,
So how did you get involved with
one of my companies, like I say, I owned, Dave came to me about recreating the headlight, and he needed some reflectors, which is spinning, which is our business. And so I made a spinning for him and paid for the tools and everything. We made the parts, and about 4 months later, he comes back, he wants another one. So I made him another one. Comes back about 6 months later, wanted a couple of more, and it's like, how many engines are you building? Well, it turns out that these type of parts are not commonly available out there, and since he had paid for the mold, the tool, he's trading his reflectors to other people who needed them, and he's getting other parts that he needed. So I ended up making him about a half dozen of them, and I personally went out there to deliver it in his shop, and I literally was standing in the middle of his frame with the wheels set, looking in the middle of everything here, looking at what he had there, and I just decided I got to start coming out and playing in his yard. So I started, joining him on weekends whenever I was available, and of course, as time went, my volunteering increased from time to time, and helping with the boiler, and I could do water drilling and hammering and stuff like that, and in other places where I needed to, I helped out.
Well, it's just an example of how much people would, in historical sense or whatever, for the volunteers, what research would get done, or things created. Am I right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, and that takes us to the Lincoln train. Now that what is it? It's going to be out at the.
Our next outing is going to be in Galesburg.
Okay. Now, is that booked for other places coming?
Yeah, we do.
Let's hope.
Well, there's, and again, this is changing constantly, but we were supposed to be in August in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but right now they're complaining about cost, and one group has approved the cost, another group said, well, maybe we shouldn't. So right now that particular commitment is limbo, whether it's going to happen or not. We are supposed to be in Spencer, North Carolina. We'll be operating both the engine and the car. We're going to be in September in the Bluegrass Railroad Museum in Versailles, Kentucky. We've got a couple of outings in September where different museums want just a car for display. And I know there's at least a half a dozen more commitments or people working on contract for commitments.
By the way, it's for sales, not Versailles.
Depends upon which side of the track you're from.
Well, they know you're from out of town when you
That's
say
right.
Versailles.
Versailles.
Yeah.
That's in France, right?
Yes,
Just like
that's the only way they pronounce
what
it
do they
there.
call it now? What's the radar is out here at Marseille? Something to say Marcellus, right? Well, anyway.
That's it, yeah. And they say Versailles.
Or shouldn't it be Des Plaines, not Des Plaines? If you, I don't want to offend anybody out there. Please keep your cards and letters. Send them right to John, right here at the studio.
No,
Anywho.
that's only if you're on Fantasy Island. It's Des Plaines.
Fantasy Island? Fantasy? The plane. Yeah, you're right. Okay, what do we got now? Anything else? Boom, boom. No?
Well, this is one of those, they really didn't do this, but there is supposedly a time limit on how much a train stays on a crossing. Well, apparently, this one took it to heart. They had it on the crossing for 34 hours. A train running on UP running on UP trackage on the running rights, a Burlington Northern Santa Fe train, crew went 12 hours instead of letting the dispatcher know. They just ran the train, hit 12 hours, and stopped. Train blocking crossing for 34. Apparently, they didn't send anybody to retrieve them for a long time. And the thing is, neither BNSF or UP spokespersons were prepared to speak about the incident or reasons for taking so long. Rumor has it the taxi driver for BNSF got lost. His GPS didn't work.
Well, where did this happen?
In Texas, Kilgore, Texas.
Could have sworn it was out in my neighborhood, west of Midway Airport there.
No, we only do it for 2 hours there. They had one where the cop was writing me a ticket. I was conductor on a freight, and we busted a knuckle. And had to go back get a knuckle and a new hose for it. And walking back up. And a cop sitting there. This your train? Yeah, I'm the conductor. He goes, give me your license. I said, why? He said, I said, no. I'm working on the train. You're not going to get my license. I'll take your ticket. And he gives me a ticket, and he says, yeah. He says, well, you're going to need your license. He says, no. I'll tell you what, you can talk to my boss. I'll do what he says. And so when they got out, they gave him the radio to talk to the dispatcher. It was in Omaha, so he didn't care. And we actually having the conversation for 20 minutes before I was allowed to walk back to the locomotive, get on, and leave.
So what happened?
Well, I left. I just turned the tickets in when I turned my orders in.
We had a procedure in the city. If you had a situation like that, you just write the ticket to the yard master or something. Wasn't that it, Sarge?
I
never did it.
I know
so-
it's on the books, and I never wrote that ticket. But then again, I never was faced with that particular situation.
Yeah. Eventually, they actually give us plastic cards. So if any cop wanted to write us a ticket, just hand them the card.
Yeah, right.
It's sort of like, I'm deaf. You
Memorandum.
can't do it.
Yeah, right. Well, that makes sense anyway.
And probably similar to the memorandum cards that the
CTA
CTA
had,
drivers
yeah.
had.
That's what I was thinking. But I mean, it's not you. You're the guy. How come? Because you're trying to do something, and
Yeah, well, I was actually doing my job, but
yeah.
halfway back of a 134-car train.
Where'd this happen, by the way? In Texas?
No, Des Plaines.
Des Plaines?
Half.
This plane.
Just about in Mount Prospect.
Long ago?
Yes.
Many moons ago, huh?
Many moons.
Many moons, Kimosabi? So.
I
Okay.
had the opportunity to speak with Tom McMahon from the Pullman Historical Society last week, and we got talking about what should have been Railway Car US 1, the Magellan, which was FDR's presidential car,
Yeah.
and that car was rebuilt at the Pullman Works in 1942. So now that the Pullman Historical Park is part of the National Park Service, they're going to go about doing a lot of research, and the Magellan is actually sitting down at the Gold Coast Railway Museum in Miami.
They were the ones that successfully bid for it when they sold it.
Yeah, they outbid the Smithsonian.
No, they actually didn't. You know how much they paid for it?
According to Kalmbach, they paid $99.
That is correct.
The Smithsonian only bid $1.
Well, they're cheap.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm sure they have no funds.
But yeah, seriously, that's what they did. They paid $99. Nobody else bid on it
Mm-hmm.
because nobody knew.
And
We found out about it in California. They said, no way we've gone to bid on this.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we found out how much it went for,
Yeah.
they got the car and completely restored it. And in 1984, while it was in Washington, D.C. to be inspected, to be, as part of the process, to be declared a National Historical Site, they contacted President Reagan's staff and asked President Reagan if he wanted to use the car for an appearance. And Reagan's staff actually came back and asked if they could use the car for a one-day whistle-stop tour. And it made a 5-stop whistle-stop tour that started in Perryville, Ohio, and ended in Dayton, Ohio. And then it was returned to the Gold Coast Railway Museum down in Miami. And even though it is not currently in service by the United States, permission has been granted, and the seal of the President of the United States is hung on the gate rail on the back of the car permanently in recognition of the car's service from when it was put in service in 1942 until its last official trip when Mamie Eisenhower went from Washington, D.C. to Groton, Connecticut for the christening of the USS Nautilus.
Oh, 1954?
54.
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's 54. My memory isn't quite what it used to be, but I think I got that date right.
I think you're right.
And then
Yeah.
the companion car that was routinely with it was the 1401, which was an 81-foot long converted combination car, and that was the radio communications car for FDR and Truman and Eisenhower, and it was last used in the early 1960s for one day in New York as part of a ham radio fest. And unfortunately, they don't know exactly where the 1401 is right now. It was at the U.S. Army Transportation Corps Museum for a while, but it has sort of faded off into history, like so many other good things.
yeah, it was at Fort Eustis. But for some reason, all the rail transportation seems to have disappeared.
They've been selling a lot of it off.
The government? Yeah.
There's always auctions for government railroad equipment.
In the early 1990s, NREC, the National Railway Equipment Corporation, used to have a building out on Avenue O, about 136th Street, and they were rebuilding a GP 9 that the Army had in storage, and they'd put it in service, moving a lot of equipment during Desert Storm, and had pretty much beaten it up, and the Army had sent it to NREC to have it rebuilt and repainted, and it's the only Army locomotive I've ever seen that was painted fire engine red with yellow markings on it.
That became the new color scheme, the military locomotives.
Well, it was there, along with several other unique pieces of rail equipment that I had never seen before, including a pallet-mounted 600 horsepower diesel engine that they could just sling in and sling out of the frame on a switch engine. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know where the 1400 is, or 1401 is. There's an interesting story about the 1401. That when they had to figure a way to rig antennas on it, so they figured they'd put the copper wire inside bakelite tubing and paint it black, and because of the voltage that was going through it, the tubing was actually lighting up like a neon tube. And they wound up having to rig the antenna wiring inside solid copper pipe and then paint the pipe black. Otherwise, this thing looked like a very bizarre Christmas tree every time they transmitted.
No, in the 80s, if you go to any railroad museum, you'll see that they have military diesels and such. In San Diego, at the San Diego Railroad Museum in Campa, we have 2 EMD MRS-1s. They were C-truck locomotives. EMD built 13 of them for service overseas. And the trucks had the movable wheels in them, so they can go multi-gauge.
Oh, neat.
They call them multi-gauge trucks. And we also ended up getting an Alco one. And they were 1,600 horsepower. Straight roots blown engine, 250, the new 251 in the Alcos, and the EMD had, of course, the 567 BC chassis.
Now, Brian, when you say trucks, for the benefit of some of the audience, you're referring to the
motorized wheel sets.
Yeah, not a truck on a highway, but
no.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like where the
the wheel sets were called trucks.
Were there 4 together or something? Or?
No, 6 wheels.
6. Okay, that's making.
They did have an 8. They actually had a 4-axle version.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, they had, if you go out to the IRM, you can see the locomotive out there.
That's the Illinois Railway Museum in
Union,
Illinois. Yeah.
Yeah, they have what they call a DD40X.
Yeah,
largest diesel locomotive in the world.
Mm-hmm.
96 feet 6 inches. The same distance as it is from home plate to first base.
60 feet 6 inches? Oh, home
96.
Plate. Oh, it's the first base, not the pitcher. Okay. Sorry. Tell you, my hearing's bad today. I have an excuse. I'm paying attention, though. He
doesn't have your earmuffs turned up.
Anyway, yeah, that's Illinois Railway Museum is a great trip for anyone. We were out there last summer. We saw the grandson. We had Thomas was out there. He'll be back this year, I guess, in August.
Yeah, well, the only steam locomotive was saved from one of the coal roads back east, the Lehigh and oh my God, New England.
Mm-hmm.
The only steam locomotive left, an 060, is sitting out there. And they just recently found a diesel from Lehigh and New England when they abandoned.
Really?
A lot of their locomotives ended up going to the Tennessee Central and the Louisville and Nashville. And they found this Alco that Tennessee Central gave away to an industry, and it still operates, and it's in Indiana. They're going to try to get it back, and its number is 611.
You're speaking of old engines, and I can remember now. My dad was from Canaryville, which is a section of Chicago, like right in front of where the old amphitheater was. Instead of back of the yards, like in front of the yards. And like around 1956, 57, you'd go down there to see my grandmother, and there were always these locomotives being hauled in. They were going to the scrap heap. You wonder how many treasures were destroyed. We think of it that way anyway. I'm sure you can't save everything, right? But I mean, even so, some must have been.
Well, considering like the Pennsylvania, who had, of just one locomotive, they had 450 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just one class of locomotive. And luckily, 2 were saved.
2.
And yet, like the New York Central, they had over 350 Hudson-type locomotives. Their famous passenger locomotive. None were saved.
None. Okay.
Yeah, and just like when they rebuilt the Tornado over in England, passenger engine that had gotten scrapped. The U.S. is following suit and trying to rebuild one of the passenger engines from the Pennsylvania Railroad. A T1, they call it a duplex. And it's been known to go over 100 miles an hour. And so if everybody makes donations, they figure within 20 years they'll be able to have enough to build a steam locomotive.
So you were saying before you went on the air, Fred, like with this Lincoln train, was lacking funds from funding?
Yes.
Wouldn't some big corporations be interested?
Well, that's what everybody thought, that corporations would jump on this, but everybody that was contacted all said it was a great idea and come back to us. And we talked to all the main railroads figuring they might jump on this. They all just kind of indicated that funds are short, and we'll match what other railroads do, but you got to get one first person to commit, then he would open up the faucet, but not one would commit a dime to anything.
The railroads.
Yep, the railroads and several other government agencies, because this whole event that we're supposed to be running from Washington through 1,700 miles of a trip all the way back to Springfield. There were so many places that were interested, but nobody wanted to commit a dime to help the project through.
What about these? There's these big foundations. We've heard a lot about foundations lately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that basically from families who really earned a fortune and they're trying to give back, or?
All well and good, but
I
like
know,
I said,
yeah.
I wasn't involved in writing any of the grants or
Yeah.
but they had people doing it, and believe me, from what I hear of the meetings and stuff, that they literally were contacting hundreds and hundreds of companies and sending out the forms and everything they could,
Yeah.
and the consensus was everybody thought it was a great idea. They loved to be part of it, but we'll get back to you about funding.
Yeah. I thought it'd be a natural myself. I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't know.
We all did. I mean, Dave has got a considerable amount, 6 digits out of his pocket to make this thing happen, and that doesn't include all the volunteer time and materials that we all donated into that. I mean, this is you're talking mid 6 digits to be able to build this car.
This is our own country's history, and bringing it back to life, and it's like a certain reverence. I mean, I've often told the Lord, I'll tell him right now, Lord, I would be such a great philanthropist if you could only grant me some big cash flow from somewhere. I promise.
Yeah. Well,
give me the winning lottery numbers.
Just take a look at everything that we do here, whether it's scouts, whether it's trains, whether it's church organizations, or whatever, even the schools. Mm-hmm. Everybody's looking for a donation to cover the shortages that the government doesn't fund. Mm-hmm. Everybody's asking for money. I mean, to a certain degree, the big corporations are taking a look saying, hey, we can only spend X amount of dollars. and I'm already got this all committed. Where am I going to grab any more money from? You know, they have to prioritize, and it just comes down to what they feel is the biggest impact for that dollar. You know, if you had a couple of politicians who were claiming to be on board, but never sponsored and set up, you know, going to these different organizations to say, I'm sponsoring this, what are you going to do to help us?
Yeah. Well, it's been our experience, and I speak to an editorial wheeler, our experience that the politicians will hop on when it looks like it's going to be for certain success, then they'll get in there and act like they were leading it all the time. I'm generally speaking now. Obviously, we have public servants, we have politicians, so we'll see. Anyway, God bless you for what you're doing.
Have you ever been to the Smithsonian?
No.
If you go to the Smithsonian and you know you're talking about American history, there is an exhibit about Abraham Lincoln, and they have one of his top hats, and they have several other things. And there is a Derringer there in the display case, and there's a little card next to it that says, "This is a replica of the 44 caliber pinfire Derringer that was used to kill President Abraham Lincoln." They don't even have the original. They have a copy. The same copy that anybody else can get, that they're selling in a magazine right now for $45.
So where's the original? Who knows?
Somebody has it in a private collection and will not either sell it to the Smithsonian or loan it to them.
There ought to be a law, you know?
Well,
Look, we need more laws. So, anything else, Fred?
No, I just happen to have a literature on the return trip, all the key cities that it hit. And when it,
Now, there's a website too, isn't there? With that,
Yes.
The
I believe,
2015.
Yeah, and there's a couple of websites. Those train guys, I believe it is .com or .org. I'm not sure. That's a newer one that was set up because of issues we had in Springfield, trying to get the support there. I mean, there was a certain point we weren't even going to be in Springfield, and it was just 11th hour getting down there and set up our own fundraisers to cover our costs to be there.
Yeah, here is Springfield, where he left, where he returned, and where he said his farewell, and his tomb is over there.
Yep. Yeah, we were down there 4.5 years ago. Actually longer than that, but 4.5 years ago, when Lincoln left Springfield to go to Washington when he's elected, we had proposed, because Dave had started another car, and it says we could get this finished and we could use the Leviathan and duplicate his exit out or his leaving Washington or Springfield on his way to Washington.
Yeah.
And we were talking to them for about a year until finally it came evident that they wanted no part of it.
I don't know, you know. I know things are tough, but I mean,
You know,
come on.
the biggest obstacle, of course, you're always asking for funds. There's always a shortage, but the really biggest obstacle is we were not going to be able to get track rights on any one of the railroads going through there. Okay, we had it laid out where we could actually be on the siding, and we would be on the main line no more than 2 to 3 minutes till we hit another siding. We still couldn't get anybody, and the politicians would not step up to plate to talk to the railroads to see if we could make something like this happen.
No arm twisting or anything, huh? Not even a pleasant request.
No, I believe they were worrying about their jail time at that.
Well, it's just like there's two convicts walking through down in the prison, and they're in line for going to the cafeteria. And one guy starts saying, "Boy, service around here is terrible. The food's terrible. The service is getting worse and worse." And he says to the other guy, "It was much better when you were governor." So, anyway, that's ours for the. And we're about at the end of the line here. It looks like, aren't we? So, are we there, John?
Yes, yeah.
Well, this is Jack Ryan thanking Brian Valut, Kevin Berry, our special guest, Fred Haverkamp?
Yes,
I'll
correct.
get it right. I'm half a German boy myself, so I should be able to get that right. Thanks, Fred, and listen, we'd like to see you back sometime, maybe.
Okay.
Anytime you want. Anytime you want.
Okay.
We have fun like this every month, don't we, gang?
Yes,
we
we
got a
do.
few more nuts to meet, too. I mean, guys to meet we can in here, too. right? With very. Now, by the way, my background in railroad, my grandfather and my uncle and my cousin all worked for the Chicago Junction Railroad, so and that's hence the name. So, well, once again, this is Jack Ryan saying, "Happy rails to you." See you next time.
All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Join us again next time when we take our railroads of the imagination on our continuing journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network and can be heard over this station as well as the WindyCityHometown.com, where recordings of all our shows may be accessed. Once again, all aboard! This is your announcer, Brian Ballou, thanking you for listening. Oh yeah, the conductor was portrayed by Charlie Johnson, a struggling young actor in need of work. This
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, June the 15th, the year 2015. Chicago Junction was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita. Our audio engineer is Mr. James Rohde. Radio station manager for WRHS FM Norwich is Mr. Kevin Zefalik. And the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment is Mr. John Secondo. This broadcast was recorded on Wednesday, June the 10th. Until next time, thanks for listening, and please be safe. And your FM dial is tuned to Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois, a Ridgewood Community High School radio station. Have a good day.